Republicans currently rule the House, the Senate, and the White House, but our next guest has been working hard to tip the scales for Democrats. Please welcome back Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Giving them hell.
I don't know about that. They giving me hell, honey.
Yeah, but you give it right back to them. A lot of them don't do that.
Absolutely. It's a must in this environment,
That's
though,
right.
Because they will steamroll right over you. And unfortunately, we see that ever since day one, baby, that pen been going and it ain't stopped. And it's steamrolling over all of our rights and our liberties and our freedoms and everything that we thought was the foundation of this country, our Constitution.
Yes.
Seems like we're saying, well, nope, with a pen, get rid of the Constitution. With a pen, get rid of impoundment and other laws that exist.
Do you think that Americans just didn't believe that he would go with that Project 2025? Or what? What was that? I mean, he said, I don't even know what it is. Remember?
Oh, I remember, honey.
Yeah.
You know, I remember there was actually a hearing that we had in oversight, and it was right after he said, oh, I know nothing about that Project 2025.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a witness, and I mentioned that his name was mentioned 312 times.
Yes.
In Project 2025.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is interesting that he don't know nothing about it, but he's all through it.
And you know, if it's his name, he's riveted to it.
No. And he's relying on the people that absolutely pulled it together.
Like J.D. Vance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I mean, I think that there are those that just said, I want to do something different. And so we know that typically when people are feeling it, especially in the economy, they tend to just go the other way.
Why?
The problem is that this wasn't the guy to fix anything. This is the guy that is the king of breaking things, as we can see.
Yeah. Well, Congresswoman, Elon Musk and Doge, the team, have been infiltrating and dismantling federal agencies. He says he's rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, all while gaining access to some of our most sensitive data. So you sit on the Doge subcommittee run by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Are you getting any more clarity on what exactly Elon and Doge are doing?
She can't even get the question out. Listen, interestingly enough, you know, there was a court filing that came out, or there was the order that came out from Judge Chuckin yesterday, right? And one of the things that the White House and the DOJ is currently saying is that, oh, Elon has no power. Elon isn't doing that.
He's not an employee, and he doesn't head the agency.
Right.
He's tech support, I think is what they said.
So who's lying is my question. But somebody lying, right? Because they've been like, oh, Elon is cleaning it up, right? So someone's not telling the truth. And I hope that the lawyers are the ones that are telling the truth, because there is a higher standard when it comes to practicing law. This is why Donald Trump's lawyers tend to lose their law licenses. But, you know, I don't really know what's going on, and that is why the attorney generals really had a hard time meeting that burden for TRO, is because we can't say exactly what he's doing. But the problem is we've never in this country, at least in my lifetime and in most other people's lifetimes, experienced someone who is so ingrained. And so we're going to have to start talking to some of these people that are getting fired. And we're going to have to find out from them, who is it that told you that you were experiencing your last day at work? Talk to us about these little teenagers running around. Was it one of them?
Well, they're doing it through OPM. Because I have friends that work there, and they got the notice, and they got it from the Office of Personnel Management. And so, but Doge told OPM to do it.
And that's what we've got to get to the heart of.
I could testify to that. I know all about that. But let me ask you this, Congresswoman. We're also seeing mass firings of federal workers across agencies like the Department of Education, the VA, the CDC, the FAA, even the USDA. In some cases, they've had to unfire critical employees, like our nuclear safety specialists, but they didn't have their government email addresses active anymore, so they can't find them. So on what grounds are, I know you can't make it up, it's like I'm writing a movie. On what grounds are they laying, a very bad movie, on what grounds are they laying off these workers, and how will the scale of this impact everyday workers who are concerned about the price of their eggs.
And nuclear arsenals.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the deal. I don't really know what authority they have to do anything.
Yes.
I walked in, and I didn't get to read the entire article, but earlier today, it seems like there is someone who was fired that was the head of an agency,
Yes.
and a judge ruled that that firing was illegal. People seem to be surprised that the first felon that we ever elected to the White House commits crimes, but, you know, or breaks the law. Breaks the law. But clearly, he has no respect for the law whatsoever. And so, for the most part, it seems like they've been going after probationary people because probationary employees do not enjoy the same protections.
They lack some protections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it'll be interesting to see where the unions go with some of these lawsuits and how successful they are. But again, ultimately, I think that he's trying to get to his favorite court. The court that we know we all love to hate.
Yeah.
The highest court. I think he's trying to get there and hoping to get some cover for all the nonsense. After all, this is the same court that gave him immunity.
That is
so
true.
that he could go out and do some of the illegal things that he's doing.
Do you think they have a limit, though, the court?
You know what? I keep trying to point people to the TikTok decision. Not necessarily because of the subject matter, but more so because basically they said, no, this was signed into law, and in a 9-0 decision, they would not allow him to unilaterally overturn it. So we will see how well they hold up, but we know that this administration keeps threatening judges. If a judge hands down a decision that they don't like, they talk about impeaching that judge and getting rid of that judge, and they won't be able to get rid of these judges because the standard is too high. But he may end up telling some of those Supreme Court justices that are his, it's time for you to go. And they potentially will leave because he did that last time.
Well, I want to ask you about Democrats. You're obviously leading next generation voice in the Democratic Party. And while Trump is moving at this breakneck pace, it feels like signing all these EOs, doing these long-ranging press conferences in the Oval Office, Democrats seem to not be getting their footing on what the message and strategy is to push back. We think of the leaders chanting, "We will win," outside of Treasury, which was widely panned. You've talked about Democrats needing a branding overhaul. Are you satisfied with the approach so far, and what do they need to do to kind of get their mojo back?
You know what? I think that just like the rest of the world, we've got a bit of whiplash because for some people, even those that voted for him, they said, well, we've been here before, and we didn't fall apart the last time he was here, so we won't fall apart this time. And so I think that while we had the playbook right there for us, Project 2025, I still think that even some Democrats were like, oh, well, he's just going to do what he did last time. And he's not. World leaders are recognizing that he's not the same. I mean, he's 10 times worse. And imagine that. This is the guy that oversaw how many deaths during COVID, right? And now we had Ebola breakout. Now we've got measles breakout. Like, this is bird flu, because they were some of the other people that got fired.
The USDA fired.
And he's like, oh, well, wait a minute. Like, this is just literally not even partisanship, in my opinion, at this point. This is incompetence. And I think that, no, seriously, it's incompetence. And I know earlier y'all was talking about bring back the Bushes. I'm with you, honey. Like, listen, I mean, you know,
that was some sense of normalcy, democratic norms.
And I keep saying that,
one thing, would you support Democrats shutting down the government as a bargaining chip to push back against the White House?
It's not, we don't have the power to shut the government down.
Well, to refuse to vote for funding bills.
I absolutely support that we should not be voting for this funding bill, because this funding bill is going to gut the things that we care about. And I don't believe that we can enter into good faith negotiations with people that literally could care less about their word. We saw what happened with the continuing resolution that kept the government open until March 14th because Elon sent out a tweet that changed the trajectory of negotiations that had taken place with duly elected members of the House, the Senate, as well as the president. So my concern is this guy has decided that after monies were appropriated to literally turn off the spigot of money just at will because he wanted to do it. Who's to say that if we enter into good faith negotiations and we get some of the things that we feel like are good for the American people, that he won't just do what he wants to do and ignore the stuff he doesn't want to do? So I don't think that we should be voting for this. They have a Trump trifecta. Y'all better figure it out.
We will come back with more from this treasure. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. We are back with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. And Sarah, you have a question.
Yeah, well, Congresswoman, you've earned a reputation for some calling out certain Republican antics. We all remember the viral bleach, blonde, bad-built, butch body moment with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And last month, things took quite a turn when you confronted Congresswoman Nancy Mace over her anti-trans rhetoric. Let's see the clip.
Somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she gonna keep saying trans, trans, trans so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or
Do
not
call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those emails actually have
ceilings.
Chairman, I am reclaiming my time.
You will not do that. I am not a child.
I am reclaiming my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order.
Order.
Point of order.
Okay, so I'm sure when she said that, she was just offering to go for coffee or something. But we understand that you received a very unnerving call after some of this.
I did. Obviously, we get tons of calls from lots of haters all the time, but there was actually someone who works for another sitting member of Congress that called from that congressional office to our office to try to basically say, yeah, I want to put money on this. I want them to go outside. That is completely inappropriate. Yeah. And I don't really care what side of the aisle. It is threatening, and I don't care what side of the aisle you come from, but it should never be okay for a staffer. And it wasn't okay for her either. I do want to point out that we are living in a time in which, people on the outside are following their lead, but instead of Nancy Mace challenging me to go outside to fight, what she should be fighting for is a better economy, especially for those in South Carolina that are about to feel it. Yeah.
And quickly, because we're short on time, that kind of gets to my next question, which is, for all of the criticisms that exist of Donald Trump, he right now has a 53% approval rating. It's higher than it's ever been. 70% believe that he's fulfilling his promises, and 45% believe Democrats should be more moderate. What do you take away? I think there's a lot to make of those numbers. What's your takeaway from that?
My takeaway is just like the election. We've got to do better at education. People don't understand, but you will understand when those hospitals in rural America start closing down even more. You will understand when you don't have your Social Security. You will understand when your Medicaid, your Medicare goes away. You will understand as planes continue to fall out of the sky. Soon you will understand why it's important to maybe have somebody that isn't loud and ridiculous, and maybe Sleepy Joe is what we wanted because we could at least sleep at night.
Yeah, that's the truth. Amen, child. She was upset by calling her child. I mean, come on. Our thanks to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. We'll be right back.